support their candidature. 2, redeveloping the result system to facilitate the recordal of votes cast in favor of independent candidates and translating this into seats where the relevant threshold is met. 3, updating platforms and mechanisms of liaison with parties to also include independent candidates. 4, reviewing the political party funding legislation in order to include funding of elected independents. 5, to ensure enactment of consequential amendments and regulations to enable the realization of the objects of the Act. The Commission has now approved an integrated chart of electoral milestones which contains all activities and timelines that underpin preparations for the 2024 national and provincial elections. In this regard, the Commission wishes to highlight the following. Independent candidates. The Act determines that the participation of independent candidates has to take place on the following basis. 1, an independent candidate may be nominated to contest in one or more regions, but may only be elected to one seat in the National Assembly. 2, an independent candidate may only be nominated to stand in a provincial legislature in a province in which they are registered. 3, an independent candidate may only be a member of either the National Assembly or a provincial legislature. A prescribed declaration confirming that the candidate has submitted names, identity numbers, and signatures of voters who support his or her candidature will be required. And this will be in relation to the election of the National Assembly. The names must equal 15% of the number of votes required to obtain a seat for that region in the preceding election if contesting only one region. 2, 15% of the highest quotas in the preceding election if that candidate intends to contest in more than one region. Whether 15% of the highest of quotas is not achieved, that independent candidate may only contest in the region or regions as determined by the next highest quota met. 15% in respect of that province. Further requirements include candidates must pay a prescribed deposit. Deposits paid by independent candidates may be different from those paid by political parties. Candidates must undertake to be bound by the Electoral Code of Conduct. Candidates must sign a declaration that they are not disqualified in For the Eastern Cape province, the quota was 30,847. 15% of that will be 4,627. For the Free State, the quota was 28,571. 15% of that would be 4,285. For the Free State, for the Gauteng province, the quota was 58,378, and 15% of that will be 8,756. For KwaZulu-Natal, the quota was 44,424, and 15% of that will be 6,668. For Limpopo, the quota was 29,044. 15% of that will be 4,358. For Mpumalanga, the quota was 39,243. 15% of that will be 5,886. For the Northwest Province, the quota was 28,084. 15% of that will be 4,212. For the Northern Cape Province, the quota was 12,797. 15% of that will be 1,919. And for the Western Cape, the quota was 47,843, and 15% of that will be 7,176. In respect of the ballot papers, the participation of independent candidates in elections of the National Assembly as a consequence of the signed law has the following noteworthy implications. First, the amended Act provides for an additional ballot paper in the election of the National Assembly, thereby offering voters a non-binary choice of either a party or an independent. The effect of this is that the regional and compensatory ballots are separate. In other words, two ballots instead of a single ballot, as was previously the case. The regional ballot for the National Assembly includes parties and independent candidates. I think this is important. The regional ballot for the National Assembly includes parties and independent candidates. The other national ballot contains only parties in order to restore proportionality. The ballots for the regional seats in the National Assembly will be regional specific in a manner similar to the provincial legislature ballots. The introduction of the second ballot for the election of the National Assembly results in an increased number of ballot papers to be printed without the corresponding increase in the timelines. Thus, the ballot printing window remains an immutable 28 days. The number of ballot papers for provincial legislatures remains unchanged at one ballot per province. This will contain the names of parties and independent candidates. Voter registration. Ahead of each election, the Electoral Commission undertakes registration drives to register new voters and to enable already registered voters to inspect, where necessary, update their registration details. These drives result in updating of the voters' roll. For this purpose, the Electoral Commission announces that it will open its network of approximately 24,000 voting stations over the weekend of 18 and 19 November 2023 to register new voters for the forthcoming elections and to facilitate the inspection of the voters' roll. Voting station-based registration represents the most equitable manner of equalizing access to the vote. Additional modalities of registration facilitate continuous registration for the information of elections by visiting www.elections.org.za. Voters may also visit the local on voting day. However, over time, this well-meaning provision has been misused in a manner that may imperil improper administration. Perceptions that some voters are able to vote more stakeholders are asked.
Thank you very much, sir. Go ahead. There's a hand in front. Yes, please, you go. And there is Natasha at the back. Is there a microphone? It's fine.
Good evening. I'm Kosnatsi Shazi from Power FM News. I just have two questions. The first question is a question of clarity. So with these changes, does this mean that the electoral formula for the allocation of seats has been amended? So for example, if an independent candidate meets the threshold to get a seat in Parliament, and he meets that because that person is an independent candidate, what will then happen to the 4 other seats? Does he now forfeit those seats? What happens to the seats of the voters? And number 2, with these changes in a short period of time, the elections are just months away, what voter education will the IEC be rolling out to the citizens of South Africa, considering that the ballot paper is going to be larger and bigger? And the chairperson did indicate that these are very big changes in a time where voters will be needed. So what voter education will you guys be doing? Thank you very much.
It's Natasha Puri from SABC News. Am I audible? Okay, sorry. And Tatamasoti, you just stressed on the issue of time. I mean, how important is it? Because you talk about additional ballot papers. It's a lot of work. Does the IEC have its work cut out? Also, in a statement released by the presidency today, they had said that the amended act requires the Minister of Home Affairs to establish the electoral reform consultation panel. Will IEC officials be part of that panel? Can you hear me, ma? Oh yes. Okay, let me just repeat that. So there was, in a statement by the presidency, they'd said that the amended act requires the Minister of Home Affairs to establish an electoral reform consultation panel. Will officials of the IEC be part of that panel? What inputs will you be making? And just perhaps a follow-up on your online voter registration campaign that you launched earlier on this year. How's that going? How many people have registered to vote so far? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Peter Mulamani, Kaya FM. I'm not sure whether the IEC is still facing budget cuts. If yes, which specific areas will be impacted going into this 2024? National elections, are we talking about stuff like normally the
Does not necessarily increase because we have new independent and new parties. The Commission has a duty to look at the seats before an election is held that a legislature is entitled to. The seats in the National Assembly are 400, and all contestants will, in fact, be allocated or will be contested for those seats. In terms of candidates, independent candidates who are popular, let me say, who muster more than the quota required for one seat, there are only one person. They will be entitled to only one seat. This is a matter we have been dealing with consistently through the process of the legislation making.
Thank you very much. The The law, as assented to by the President, provides for an electoral reform process. In other words, the electoral system that we have for 2024 can be seen as a transitional electoral system, because after that, a panel is constituted, and that panel will do a reform exercise around the electoral system. And it would have to structure its work such that there's a new electoral system, or rather a revised electoral system, by the time of the 2029 national and provincial elections. The panel will be appointed by the Minister of Home Affairs in consultation with the Commission. So, however, there'll be a public nomination process. So members of the public will be now allowed to nominate persons who they believe have the requisite expertise to make a meaningful contribution to the articulation of a new electoral system for the country. Indeed, there may be persons who are in the IEC and outside of the IEC who may make a contribution if such people are duly nominated. The online registration system, the campaign that we launched earlier this year worked well. It's quite popular with young persons. But the biggest input that we are procuring with the use of the online system is persons who are changing their registration details. As at the last count, I think about a month ago, we were hovering just under 70,000 new registrations via the online portal. Yes, budget cuts we've experienced, and that phenomenon is true for many other state bodies. However, our discussions with National Treasury are such that we should be in a position to give the country a quality election on the basis of the resources that have been availed to the Commission. We are not cash flushed, but I don't think the situation is so bad that we would not be able to do the functions that we need to perform.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further hands. And can I just confirm that we don't have any other comments, questions online? Anything? I think it is fine. Okay. There's a follow-up question in front, Peter. If you can just wait for the mic.
Thank you so much. How long time does the IEC need to rewrite the electoral system? There's no time, to be honest. There's no time. But how long time does the IEC need? If the IEC can say 18 months, 6 months, 10 months, but how long time do we need? Thank you.
The CEO is going to take that.
The electoral system has now been institutionalized into law. So it is clear what are the systems that are going to be used to turn votes cast into seats in a legislative assembly. So the legal part of that equation has now been sorted out. What remains for the IEC to do is to build business applications that will give practical effect to what the law provides. We have already indicated in December last year that we are commencing with the process of rewriting those business applications. And we did so on risk because of the realization that if we were to wait, we probably would have run out of time. So we took risk and proceeded to start work on the business applications, even when the law had not been signed. So we've made some headway in that regard, because we think that a responsible commission needed to start working even absent a signed and assented to bill. It doesn't take away the fact that there are pressure points from a timing perspective, which is why the chair was saying we've already established our integrated chart of milestones to guide the work that we need to do leading up to the elections in 2024. Time is of the essence, but if no major headways come our way, we should be able to give a country a decent election in 2024.
All right, so it looks like the signal has frozen there, but some big takeaways for us. The IEC is ready to deliver a quality election, they say. You're listening to the CEO, Sama Mabolo, and the chairperson, Masutu Moepia. Just to remind you as well, big voter registration weekend planned for the 18th and the 19th of November. There's been a lot of talk about independent candidates. It's one candidate, one seat. I believe the feed has been restored. Let's take you back.
It looks like we are not able to hear what is happening there, but I do think the audio is back now. Let's try to listen in.
Nope. There's no audio.
Struggling to hear what Masutu Moepia has to say there as we are watching this particular IEC briefing. And we'll be talking to some of those who are watching this very closely, Iman. And you talk about, the independent candidates. Their participation has always been a huge issue. And even when it went to the court in 2020, they did say it's invalid. And now there's a whole lot of constitutional matters to also consider when it comes to who qualifies and how then do they begin to run for next year's election.
Yeah, and also some, announcements on if you're outside of your registered domain and you want to register your vote, you actually have to give them prior notice now, unlike before. So some big developments tonight. We will bring you a recap of those events as the program continues. And of course, you can catch it on our own live stream as well. Going to leave it there for the moment and come back for the latest headlines.